Today we are going to explore Greensboro, which was once a frontier town in the late 1700s. It's about an hour's drive east of Atlanta, situated on the edge of Oconee National Forest and Lake Oconee. Greensboro was founded in 1780, and the town was incorporated in 1803 when it had less than 400 full-time residents. This was a frontier town that was completely burned and destroyed by natives in 1787. Today, this is a small town community with an interesting history, and it's easily accessible for anyone who needs to escape the hectic traffic and other pressures of our modern cities. We are so fortunate for these small towns and to be able to get a sense of what life is like in a small town, where people still live in a community and cherish a slower pace of living.
So Greensboro was founded in 1803 officially. Some records show that it was founded in 1700s, the late 1700s, but everywhere it says 1803. We are a historic city. We are a square city, so our historic courthouse still sits in the middle of our downtown. It is the third standing courthouse. The first two burned, first by the Native Americans in the 1700s and the second by prisoners that were in the jail cell. So when they came back and built it again, they built it the Greek Revival style, 3 stories, and it has been added on to throughout the years, which you can see as you walk by it. Something else historic and unique about Greensboro, we have one of the oldest standing masonry jails in the state of Georgia. I'm standing here in front of it now. So it was built in 1805 and was closed in 1895. It is unique because it's 2-foot granite blocks. And as you look at the building too, you can see how it slopes. So when it rains, the water will fall off of it instead of stand atop.
And the top is flat.
The top is flat. But when they closed this jail, they opened the L.L. Wyatt jail. I mean, it was just the Greene County jail at the point that time, but we now call it the L.L. Wyatt jail because he was the longest running sheriff on the fee system in Georgia. He was the sheriff for 40 years. He came here to stop moonshine in the 1920s. And he was an outstanding man. He never drank. He was an outstanding citizen. Everybody loved him. But he definitely brought in the moonshine because moonshine in the 20s for Greene County was the best moonshine across the state. If you went into any hotel, any high-end hotel in Atlanta or Savannah and asked where they got their moonshine from, they would all say it came from Greene County.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
And was it made out of corn? Or?
It's corn whiskey, yes. But we have a river, the Oconee River, that a lot of people set up shop and would make the whiskey from on the river.
Interesting.
So it is interesting. I'll take you on a tour inside the Wyatt jail.
Yeah, sure. Okay. That'd be perfect.
Sheriff Wyatt lived here with his family. He even deputized his wife and teenage son so that they could help move prisoners. Today, this historic building has become the L.L. Wyatt Jail.
It was built in 1895. The sheriff and his family would live upstairs, and downstairs was where the sheriff would have his office and the kitchen, and the cells were in the back of the building. So.
Oh, you have his picture here.
We do. That is Sheriff L.L. Wyatt. That is two of his badges that he had when he was here in Greene County. He actually passed away cutting grass on the courthouse lawn in the 1970s. So he was a sheriff that did a lot and did everything pretty much. Was named Peace Officer of the Year in the 1970s. Stopped a bank robbery that came from Rennes, Georgia. The 2 bank robbers took 2 of the ladies hostage, made one of them drive. Sheriff L.L. Wyatt put up a roadblock on Highway 278 and coming down the hill. And he got out of the car and started walking towards the car, and the man said, "If you walk any closer, I'm gonna shoot." And the bank robber had a sawed-off shotgun. and he shot. He went to shoot at L.L. Wyatt, and the gun misfired, and Sheriff Wyatt was able to kill him, and then another officer was able to kill the bank robber that was in the back of the car. So they were able to save both of the women in the car.
What's really amazing is that he was in his 70s when that happened, right?
Yeah. So he was brought here in the 1920s from North Georgia because he was told that he had the fastest legs in the South to run off moonshiners. Rumor is he never carried a gun on him. I think of him kind of as Andy Griffin, the old Andy Griffin show.
Yes.
Like, he walked around town, he was very polite, and if he knew you were doing something bad, what I have been told is that he would walk up to you and say, "I had a dream about you. I had a dream you were making moonshine, and I hope my dream is not correct, but if it is, maybe you should stop." And that was his warning to you that, hey, I know you're doing something bad and I'm coming for you next time. So he always had grace for people.
Yeah, you can tell in his face that he was a good man.
Yes, he was a very good man. Sheriff Wyatt was supposed to have a movie written about him. The man that wrote the TV show The Beverly Hillbillies came to Greene County and did a whole script, like a whole movie script for Sheriff Wyatt, but he ended up passing away before they finished the movie.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
This is the sawed-off shotgun
Yeah,
from
I
the
was
bank
gonna ask
robber.
you.
As the wife, she was the jailer. She also was the cook for the jail cell. This room we're standing in now was what I was told was the kitchen back in the day. We do have a moonshine still up here too. That somebody donated. I know I've had people tell me that they were teenagers and got in trouble and had to be put in this jail overnight. And these are people that are like in their 40s and 50s now.
Yeah.
So, and
You're never gonna forget that.
no. And you can get it from this side. But they would
this is where they would give them food, I guess.
And each cell had the 4 bunks with a toilet. And then the one in the back, which I mean is a storage unit and can't really see, but it had a shower and a sink and another toilet. So we have a local ghost story. His name was Oscar, and he was a carpetbagger from who knows where, and he got off the train off of Cary Station Road, which is outside of town, and started walking towards town, towards Madison. Well, we think that's where he was going. And he went into somebody's backyard. This is again like 1930s. He was trying to drink some water and he fell out. So they think he either was dehydrated, like the lady went out and thought he was a drunk. She went in to call the police or send for the police. When she came back out, she realized that he had passed out. So back then, there wasn't there wasn't a hospital. So they would bring him here to the jail cell. So they brought him here and he died. Well, no, he didn't have any identification. Nobody knew where he came from. They assumed he got off the train station off of Cary Station Road. We assume he was headed towards Madison because that's kind of like where the commerce was, looking for work. So they took him to McCommons. McCommons is the oldest standing funeral home here in Greene County, over 100 years, 5 generations at this point. So they took him to McCommons, and McCommons embalmed him, and they put him in the building. So the big store, which I'm sure you walked by, big brick building across from Genuine, Georgia. It's got multiple different shops now, but we call that the big store. They sold everything from the cradle to the grave. They had car sales, everything back then.
Yeah.
But so they embalmed him there, put him in a casket. So they put an ad out in Atlanta and Augusta saying, "Do you know this man?" Described him. They'd get phone calls, they'd get letters. "Yes, we know who this is. That's my uncle." But nobody claimed him. Years. So they tell stories that sometimes like the light will magically turn on and they're like, "Oscar, stop." They named him Oscar. Again, no identification. But the only reason Oscar is not in a casket in McCommons is because the Department of Health called him and said, "Hey, I heard you've had a body in your building for like 5 years." And they're like, "No, like 25 years. And they told him they had to bury him. So.
Yeah. Kendrick, I really appreciate it. This is
problem.
wonderful. The oldest house in Greensboro was constructed for the American Revolutionary soldier Jonas Fouché, a Frenchman. He participated in both the Revolutionary War of 1775 till 1783 and the War of 1812 that finished in 1815, also against Great Britain. Major Fouché was considered an American patriot, and he with his militia successfully defended Greensboro in the 1790s attacks by a fierce Cree nation.
That's how the house looked when we bought it.
Oh.
It's about to fall in. My granddaddy restored it, and that's what it looked like when he got through with it. And that's when we remodeled it. That's the ad we ran in the newspaper. That's in 1948, I think, was when that was. These are the original floors.
From 1794?
1794.
So when did you buy this house?
We bought this house in 1947.
Okay.
We started, see, the way we got in the funeral business was that big store across the street over there. In the 1800s, when somebody died, you didn't go to a funeral home, you called the general store, because the general store had the caskets.
Yes.
But we take the casket to their house and embalm them on their back porch, put them in the casket and dress them and put them in their living room. You did everything at their house. And then the next day we take our horse-drawn hearse, that's a picture of it back here, take our horse-drawn hearse to their house and take them to the cemetery or the church or wherever they were going to be buried. But
That's interesting.
it's totally different from how it's done today.
Yes.
This clock, the New Haven Clock Company, we sent them everything on this clock, and they said it was so old they didn't have any records on it. It's pre-1850 is what they said.
But it's not running now, right?
It worked, yes sir. I don't have it running because you have to keep messing with it, but it actually works.
Josiah Davis was a successful clockmaker and a businessman. He sold his factory in Connecticut in 1835 and built a new clock factory here in Greensboro that operated until 1841. These clocks are very beautiful and rare.
And then all of this furniture is from the 1800s. It's just stuff that we've collected from different families and stuff over the years.
Wow, I love
That's
this.
an old dental cabinet. Dr. Slaughter was a dentist here in Greene County, and Joel McRae was the county historian, and Joel called me one day and said, "Billy, I got this dental cabinet that belonged to Dr. Slaughter. Do you think you want it in the funeral home?" And I'm thinking some big metal cabinet or something. I'm like, "Joel, will that look good at the funeral home?" He said, "Billy, this thing is pre-1900. Said it's wooden before they started making them have metal everything." He said, "You wouldn't believe how ornate that thing is. But it's fixed so that you can put instruments
Yes.
in there. And it had like a little desk on it. And
I never seen anything like it.
it's
You can't even
unusual.
find this.
Very unusual. But it just has all kinds of little storage spaces and stuff. But I said, as soon as I saw it, I said, "Yeah, I want it, Joel. That's an unusual piece."
Yes,
But
you
he
did
knew
it.
that I loved local antiques and stuff.
Yes.
So we were glad
Beautiful.
to get it. But picture of Oscar is.
Yeah, I would love to see that picture. Maybe
Well,
I
it's
can.
just a made up.
Oh, it's not
picture.
real.
No, Miss Jan Wilson, a local painter, she had always heard about it all her life.
Yeah.
So she just made a rendering of what she
Yeah.
thought.
It's amazing there's no picture of it. I would think
My
someone.
granddaddy wouldn't let him take a picture of it because he didn't want it exploited. You know how news media gets a hold of stuff
Yeah.
and exploits stuff? He didn't want him to be exploited, and they thought that they would match it with fingerprints. When he died, there was no DNA then, so
Exactly.
you couldn't do DNA. But
They can probably find his family now.
well, they could if we knew where he was buried.
Oh, we don't know.
They buried him in a pauper cemetery out here at the county camp.
Okay,
and
it
nobody
wasn't
knows
marked.
exactly where it is because it wasn't marked.
The McCommons Funeral Home is a significant historical site in Greensboro, and I'm so grateful that they let me film the furniture and other historically important artifacts for this whole county. It is so unusual to find a family that continuously lived in a small town for 5 generations and are sort of treasurers of this town's history. I hope their legacy will continue. Greensboro City Cemetery is a final resting place of many notable people of this town, including Governor Peter Early, Josiah Davis, the clockmaker, Jonas Fauché, revolutionary soldier, and Dr. Rice, who wrote a book about the history of Greene County that is available on Wikimedia. Oh, Gwyn Allison died in 1865. He's the man I was looking for. Old bachelor, son of a revolutionary. Apparently very successful farmer, and donated most of his money for the education of poor children in Greene County. So many untold stories. Interesting stories that we shouldn't ignore today. For those who admire art, I would highly recommend that you visit Genuine, Georgia. In this store you will find art by local artists that I believe is not available anywhere else. Everything inside is so beautiful and unique, like this stunning coffee table. Just across the street is Greensboro Antique Mall, the largest antique store in Lake Oconee region.
But it's only been this antique store since the 90s, early 1990s.
Battery-operated radio from 1940. Super cool. Also check out the Ripe Thing Market just a few blocks away. You can have lunch here and try some of the sweetest peaches. Another option for lunch is Family Ties restaurant. The fried fish was very good here. Greensboro is a beautiful historical town, and the city officials are carefully preserving it by allowing only small family-owned businesses in the historical downtown. You will not find chain stores and fast food restaurants here, but its economic future depends on visitors exploring this interesting town. You know, towns have growth, peak, and decline periods, just like human life. We don't want this town to end up like Skull Shoals, a once thriving industrial town only 17 miles north from here. Without careful planning and controlled growth, every one of our cities could become like this ghost city. There's not much left to see here, just a few walls and chimneys as a reminder that nature, in the end, is really in charge of our lives and everything we do on this planet. Hard to imagine that many people lived here and worked and had their normal lives going on, and look at it now. The story of Greensboro is still not complete. It's missing the history of the people that also built this town. But their story is harder to dig out and see. For that, we'll ask for help from Mrs. Hillman. You won't want to miss the next episode, in which we'll explore the history of African American people of Greene County.